Half a couple. Good morning. There isn't any doubt in my mind that the Ocala Women's Jail should be broken down to the ground. It's old-fashioned, it's antiquated, it's not all that secure. It is, in fact, a rabbit warren. For the first time, you're going to see it on television, on a Webster walkabout, and you'll see all the parts that matter. You're going to see, for instance, the monkey cage. This is what the inmates call the monkey cage, which is a special segregation cell for protection of psychiatric cases and others in Ocala Women's Jail. You can see the burn marks in the corner because arson is almost, if you're not very careful, a daily attempt in Ocala Women's Jail. But from that this morning, we're going to have a short, sharp, and hopefully lucid session with Mrs. Pat Jordon, the Minister of Tourism, who might be able to explain to us why the interior of the museum cars of our famous tourist train were ripped out without anyone in the tourist side knowing about it, thereby in any case making a Canadian tour in the United States by the Royal Hudson impossible this season. These two stories to begin with, but we'll start with Pat Jordon after the news, after the break. On the telephone in her office in Victoria, I have British Columbia's brand new tourist minister, Mrs. Pat Jordon. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Mr. Webster. How are you?
I'm very well, but you're not so good.
Well, actually, I'm very well, thank you.
Well, who botched up the museum cars? Your man, John Plow, only knew the day before we took pictures inside the cars that these cars had been wrecked with crowbars.
Well, Jack, I'm not sure anyone has botched it up. I had a meeting with various people involved since this has come to our attention, and to date there's nothing untoward. What has happened, as you know, is that the museum used the cars for certain purposes, and we use them for other purposes. They wish to terminate their displays this year, and it really didn't matter to us whether they did or didn't. We could have used the same backdrops for another year, but they want to be ready for other things they're planning. And in so doing, they had to take out all the fixtures. Now, they had been put in substantially 5 years ago, and if you've ever renovated an old house, you know, there's always a saying, you don't build today like you used to take out your total lining, it looks very disruptive at the time. And they did want to redo wiring, which is very compatible with our thinking, so they took out the wiring and all the other features. But my understanding is that the body of the cars are not damaged in any way, the outside of the cars, and they're ready to be put together with the type of backdrops that both ministries will need for future use.
Very clear and very lucid, except that it doesn't quite gel, Mrs. Jordon. The fact remains that you had gone forward with all the railroad approvals, the railroad planning, the railroad budgeting, the trains being readied, and when the cars came over from E&N, your railroad people didn't know that it was impossible for the tour to take place in any case.
Well,
with these cars destroyed, you couldn't go on the U.S. tour.
With great respect, and you better give me time to talk or I won't admire your new red waistcoat again. Jack, the decision had not been made to send the Royal Hudson to the States. There were 2 or 3 options that were being looked at. The work that you're talking about in terms of contacting the railways, fuel suppliers, the Canadian Government Office of Tourism, staff requirements. These are all preliminary works that had to be done, A, to find out if we wish to use that option, we could do it, and B, to find out if we wish to use that option, what the costs would be that we were looking at.
All right, if you had decided to go, could you have gone with these wrecked cars?
Yes.
Oh?
We could have refurbished them. The word that I have from our professionals is that there would have been no problem in setting up...
All right, even if I accept that, ma'am, why did your staff not know the cars had been wrecked and were not prepared to go? Why did the museum department take them apart and not even tell you?
Well, Jack, our staff did know that they had...
Oh, that's not what Plull tells me.
Well, he
That's
may
not
not have known to what extent. He hadn't been over there. But when I first assumed the responsibility for this ministry, and I was in my briefings, I was told that there would be a change in the backdrop of those cars, and that the provincial secretary's ministry, the museum people, would be taking out the backdrops before they were delivered to the depot in Vancouver. So I was aware of this, and at the time, I asked if this would inhibit us in any way should we choose that option. And
All right, I'll surrender perhaps, because you're just going to talk on and on and on about it.
Don't
But
you
certainly
want
the people handling the train had no idea. John Plull had no idea. Nobody had any idea until we took the pictures.
Jack, I don't know that they knew the wiring was coming out, and that I think you're really getting hung up on semantics.
No, well, let's hang up on some more semantics.
And I've been told that if we were to redo the backdrops, as is the plan, and in keeping with the needs of both ministries, and you have to remember that these cars are like a poor old secretary. They're shunted between two groups, and naturally our needs could be slightly different. We may not need new wiring for our displays, but for the type of detailed display that the museum does, they would. And so, while it might not have been the trained people who look after it for us desire to take out the wiring, safety and the ability to develop the usability of those cars for the future demanded that wiring be removed.
Fine, my dear, but we can't go on forever. Just two short questions. Are you going to tell me with a $303 million surplus that you can't afford the trip to the United States?
Jack, it's not a matter of affording
In this year of the Canadian, in this year of the Iran escapees, you're not going to follow Gracie's magnificent example starting this 4 years ago.
Jack, you sound like the little boy who takes his vitamin pills. If one is good, two must be better. We have...
That's not answering the question, my dear.
...who tell us how to best get tourists.
What are you going to do with the $600,000 you're going to save?
Beg your pardon?
What are you going to do with the $600,000 you're going to save?
Jack, we're going to utilize our ministry dollars to the very best of our ability.
And in your opinion, the train is not the best thing to do?
I'm not saying it's not the best. I'm not saying it'll never go again. But our marketing advice this year are there other avenues that we can use to get better value for our dollars to invite guests to British Columbia.
Gracie followed her own marketing instincts, and as tourist minister, she was magnificent.
Grace was dandy. I think she did a wonderful job. And Don Phillips has done a tremendous job.
What, was he the tourist minister at one time?
I'll be bringing to you.
And then there was Elwood Veitch.
Yes.
Maybe it was in Phillips or Veitch's day when it began to kind of fall off a bit.
Well, Jack, I guess the test of time is going to be the proof, isn't it?
Yes, it is, my dear. You're not going to cancel a Royal Hudson this year, are you?
Jack, you know we're not.
No, I don't know you're not. I don't know what your government's going to do from day to day. Tell me, answer the question. Are you going to cancel a Royal Hudson?
You got your red waistcoat on this morning.
Will it steam on the 16th of May?
The 17th of May, Jack, and the tickets are printed, the brochures are printed, and that Royal Hudson is for our people and our guests here in British Columbia.
Patsy, if I may call a cabinet minister by a diminutive, thank you very much. I'm not happy with the explanation, but from you I'll accept it.
I beg your pardon?
I'm not happy with your explanations, but from you I will accept it.
May I extend a visit to you to come on the Royal Hudson with me from North Vancouver to Squamish?
Only if I pay my own ticket. Thank you very much, Pat Jordon.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye. Got to give the woman a chance. Follow Gracie's footsteps in tourism, to be specific, and she won't go far wrong. Next, the monkey cage. Ocala. Last week I interviewed Marie Peacock, the warden of the Ocala Women's Prison, in the studio. Yesterday I went with my camera crew and went out to Ocala, not the nicest place in the world, and we went in and we went through the women's unit all the way. We saw segregation, the monkey cage, the male cow barns. We saw the lot. You'll see some of the facilities. And after this, we're going to do a talk show on it. But here I am, in Ocala, women's unit. I'm on the steps of the somewhat antique Ocala Women's Correctional Unit. Now, last week we had Marie Peacock, the warden of the institution, on the air telling us about some of the problems and perhaps putting to rest some of the tales that are told about this place. I don't know what we're going to find, but I know that it's not the most modern place in the world, and I'm going to go now and meet Marie Peacock, and she's going to show me around the institution. So please come with me, and we'll see what we see as we enter the old main hall, I suppose you could call it that. Good afternoon, Mrs. Peacock.
Good afternoon.
We meet again.
Yes, we do.
What's going on in the main hall of this old building?
Well, we're doing some renovations here because we had some serious security problems, so we're now in the process of...
Did anybody escape out through this way at any time?
No, we were fortunate.
And you're tightening up the security
Yes,
here?
that's right.
So you're rebuilding the whole thing. How long has it been here?
We're not only tightening up the security here, we were enlarging the visiting area. And this building has been here approximately 50 years.
This should be the visiting area?
Yes.
You've got it in temporary quarters somewhere else?
Yes, we have.
Now, what am I going to see? Anything I want?
You can see anything you want.
From the cow barns to the protective custody cells?
Yes. You can
Segregation?
Yes, you can see anything you want to see.
And is there any sign of any of the trouble you've had since November still available for us to see?
Well, you might see a few tears in some furniture that hasn't been repaired, but you won't see too much.
How about arson?
Yes, you can see that.
Now, a very important question. Can I talk to women prisoners and ask them any question I want?
Yes, you could do that. However, if some of the prisoners who would like to speak up, I would be in a position of having to put them in protective custody, because it just isn't possible for inmates to speak out favorably when there is an element of those who don't wish them to speak out favorably.
Well, let me get that square. If I go to a girl and a girl says, well, the place isn't that bad, I'm being treated quite well, I like what I'm doing in here, I don't like the place, but I'm in it, she could be in trouble with other inmates?
Yes, she could indeed.
Is what you're telling me that you have, like at a lumpet, a hardcore who would take revenge on anyone who said anything nice about you, the guards, or the institution?
That's precisely what I'm
Now,
saying.
you're not pulling my leg.
I'm not pulling your leg. That's precisely what I'm saying.
And you have a couple of inmates in mind who might well
That's right.
want to take physical revenge?
Physical, yes.
Lives in danger?
Yes, it could be.
So therefore, it would be silly of me to attempt to question every prisoner I see, because they could be in real trouble. Not with you.
That's right, because I would be putting them in a position where they might want to speak out, and if they did, I would have to put them into protective custody.
For the rest of the sentence?
That's right.
Now, where shall we start? Through this door here?
Yes, that would be fine.
Right, let's go. And off we go. We're going to go upstairs into the jail, is that
Yes,
right?
that's right.
That's what we'll go around the corner here then. Oh, you gotta lock that door?
Yes, we do.
You want to lock it?
I'll leave the key with the key.
And which way upstairs?
Right up this way.
Right up this way. Okay, let's go. Now, where exactly are we going now, Mrs. Peacock?
We're in the top hall of the institution, and we'll go down and see that room that was torched that I told you about.
Torched. That's your quaint word for burned up by inmates.
That's right.
Now, this isn't an ordinary room, is it?
Yes, it's a regular cell.
A regular cell. And it's empty at the moment.
It's empty at the moment.
Well, now, this is room 30. Perhaps you can tell me, Marie, what happened in here.
Well, this is the room that was torched the day following the incident where we had taken inmates to protective custody. We felt that we had sufficient information to have to protect those inmates.
Oh, they'd gone down, was it two of them, wasn't it?
Two. There were only two occupying this cell at the time.
And they went down to segregation for their benefit.
For their benefit, and the segregation rules didn't apply to them. They were there for protective custody. The following day, this room was charged.
How did they do it?
Well, it was thrown through that window there.
They broke a window and threw
Yes.
some burning material.
That's right.
And this place went up, as you see.
Yes.
Lucky you got it out.
Yes, it was, indeed. We could have had some serious problems.
It was empty at the time.
Yes, it was empty. There were no inmates.
But this is where the two girls had been.
Yes.
Was this an indication how they felt about the two girls?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Is this your only arson recently?
This is the only one, apart from the few that we have with the Doukhobor ladies.
Okay, later we're going to look at the protective custody cells, but we'll look at some of the more pleasant places on this floor
Yes,
now, if we
okay.
may. If you'll go first. There we are. Now, where are we now, Mrs. Peacock?
We're in the day room in one of the living units. This is Unit 7.
Let's go with the television set. There's a question I want to ask you about it. Does each living unit have its day room?
Yes.
How many living units have you got?
We have 5 day rooms. I'm sorry, 5 living units, so we have 5 day rooms,
And you've got about 60 people in right now.
approximately.
Now, that is a black and white television set. I thought all prisons had color television sets.
Well, we don't have color television sets here.
Quite seriously, you should have.
Well,
Eh?
that's something for me to think about.
I'll speak to the Attorney General about that, will I? Okay, now, next we're going to go and look at another area of the prison.
Sorry.
The Lakeside Correction Center. Now, you're going to show me a standard living unit, are you?
Yes, I'll show
This
you
one
the
here.
standard cell.
This is number 22.
Yeah.
Now, how many girls are in here?
Well, this is a double bunk cell, so we could put 2 in here.
But normally, would you have 2 in here?
Well, we try to keep only 1, and when we're very crowded, we use the top bunk.
Use the top bunk as well. Fair enough. Not much room in it.
No,
There's
there
no
isn't.
toilet in these rooms,
Yes,
is there?
there is.
Oh, there is a toilet.
Right in the back here.
Behind the door, yes, so there is. Mr. Toilet. Now, Mrs. Peacock, where are we going now?
Well, I'll take you down to the segregation unit. It's commonly called the digger.
That's what the girls call the
Yes,
digger.
that's right.
And they can be down here for a variety of reasons.
Yes, that's right.
More than one reason.
Yes.
How many of these isolation cells, or segregation cells you call them, do you have here?
We have 10 down here, and they're all like this, with one exception.
That's the monkey cage.
Yes, that's
which we
right.
shall see shortly.
Yes.
Now, what are your powers of punishment? Why does a girl come down here? What kind of punishment can you give an inmate?
15 days is the maximum we can give on one charge. However, should there be additional charges, then that time could be consecutive.
Now, when they're in here, do they get out for exercise?
Yes, 1 hour a day.
Do they get normal food?
Yes, they get all the normal food.
So that they're not deprived cigarettes?
No, they smoke down here. They have all the regular meals served to them on trays. And they have their 1 hour's exercise. They have reading material and all the writing privileges and their visiting privileges.
Oh, you mean they get from here to the visiting area?
Yes, they
when
do.
their visitors come?
Yes, that's right.
Now, if I were an inmate, what would you give me 15 days for?
For assaulting another inmate or for assaulting a staff member. If it was not a serious assault, if it was a serious assault, I would expect the staff member would take it to outside court. But if it's not a serious assault, I may give them segregation time.
No, do they have any rights that you're hearing? Do you hear the evidence?
Yes, I do. I hear all the evidence.
They don't have lawyers for that kind
No,
of thing.
they don't have lawyers.
Because can you extend their prison time by a sentence in here?
But not by sentencing in here, but there is a remission system whereby I could extend their prison
In other
time.
words, if they don't qualify they'll lose their
That's
remission.
Right. That's right. There's a remission committee that sits once a month, and they determine from reports from the staff whether or not that inmate has earned all her remission for the month.
Now, if you're 60, how many will, say you've got 60 today, which you have, how many will normally earn remission out of your, say, 60 prison population?
Oh, most of the time, most of them won't have all their remission.
Most of the time, most of them have all their remission. Okay, now this place has never been set fire to.
Well, we've had occasional fires in here, but they're usually just mattress fires. And like during the period we had problems at the end of November, they had mattress fires, and then they'd put the burning flames outside as well.
You mean out through the little window?
Yes,
here,
that's right, yes.
just to cause alarms?
Well, and fires.
And fans. Okay, now will you show me the monkey cage?
Yes.
It's just across the hall here, as I recall. Here we are. Okay, dokie. Here we are in the monkey cage. Can we open that? Can we open that there? And will you go in front of me there? Mm-hmm. Now, why the toilet's outside here, even if they can't see it. But why is the toilet outside behind this
Well,
gate?
that was an old-fashioned idea, but I'm having that remodeled. The only reason this room is used is for highly suicidal people for constant surveillance.
And how many guards do you have on duty here?
2. There's always 2 on guarding.
Now, you've no inmates at all in here just now, have you?
No, there are none.
None whatsoever.
No.
Now, in the last kerfuffle, you told me when you were on the air last week, this was where the girls were.
There was one in this cell, but they were, at the end of November, they were all down here, yes.
All down here. And that's when some of them somebody had to be transferred over to cow barns.
That was not until December.
December?
Yes.
But it was the cow barns where you had the real problems, wasn't it?
That's right.
Fair enough. So the monkey cage is going to be opened up.
Yes, it will be.
And it's been here a long time.
Yes, it's been here for as long as I can remember.
Not really used as a punishment cage, or maybe used as a punishment?
Oh, sometimes as a punishment cage, but only if the person being punished is highly suicidal.
Oh, I see. Otherwise, it's a normal-sized cell with the toilet outside.
That's right.
Okay, let's go. Let's get out of this place. Can't say I'm very keen on that.
There's no bananas in there anyway.
Tell me, Mrs. Peacock, what's the visiting area for the Ocala Women's Unit doing in a gymnasium?
This is just a temporary arrangement while we're renovating the visiting area downstairs.
How many visits, we'll go through the side here, how many visits do Ocala inmates get? Oh, I see we have a pool table
They're
here.
allowed 2 visits a week, and they have the choice of how those visits are taken.
2 visits from
Yes,
relatives,
from relatives and friends.
from friends.
That's right.
I see, but there's normally no restriction on visiting at all.
Not normally, no.
All right, now I've got something I want you to show me here,
Yes.
if you can turn around this way.
Okay.
And do your little act. What's this?
This gymnasium doubles as a recreation room, and right now temporarily a visiting room,
And sports
also
place
a sports
and-
place, a movie theater, and a church.
This is the church. Well, I'm not going to give you a sermon. We're going to carry on from here. We're going to look at what's on for supper tonight, and then we're going to see some of the other parts of this 50-year-old women's prison. Right, Mrs. Peacock, we'll leave the church open in case anyone pops by to use it, which is not very likely today. Right, Mrs. Peacock, we're in where now?
You're in the Group 6 remand unit.
Now, what about the girls' personal laundry? Can they...
We have laundry facilities in every living unit now for laundry, for their own personal laundry.
Now, this is one of your security guards.
Yes, it is.
Iris Barr. Iris Barr. Iris, where's the body belt that carries your instant alarm? That there. And what happens when you press that button? Don't press it, but what happens when you press it?
We press it in an emergency, and it rings through to the key center upstairs.
Alarm center, you might say.
Well, yes, I guess it's sort of
In
alarm
other
center,
words,
and it indicates the area where the trouble is.
Might be. Now, in the old days, Mrs. Peacock, there was always problems about getting to telephones and not being able to communicate instantly.
That's right, because the telephones were in locked offices, and the intercoms were inadequate, antiquated, and out of reach.
How long have you had this new body belt alarm system?
Approximately a month now.
A big improvement for the sake of the guards' peace of mind, and for nobody else's.
I certainly hope so.
Good, good. Let's carry on. Thanks very much, Iris. Much obliged. We'll just walk up the door, presumably. Well, here I am in the cookhouse at the Ocala Women's Unit. Hi. Evelyn Courage, is it? Mm-hmm. Any courage to eat your food?
I sure do.
No, but do you need courage
Oh,
to
do
eat
I need
your...
courage? No,
Not
my
your
food is good, no.
And the name of your assistant here? Kathy? What's for supper tonight?
Beef stew with assorted vegetables and with potatoes, green tossed salad, tapioca pineapple pudding.
I don't like the tapioca. Can I have the pineapples without the tapioca?
No, afraid not.
Because if we're going to have the tapioca, I've got to have the pineapples with the tapioca.
It's already in it, yeah.
Where's the steak?
Steak was yesterday for lunch. You should have been here yesterday.
What kind of steak?
Wing steak.
Which?
Wing.
A wing steak. Okay. Breakfast this morning.
Breakfast this morning. Various dry cereals and cream of wheat, boiled eggs, soft-boiled eggs, toast,
And coffee.
coffee, grapefruits.
I'm not going to come in. I would put on weight if I came in. Thanks very much, Eve.
Oh, you're quite
Thanks very much, Kathy. Much obliged. Sorry, I can't accept your invitation to stay for supper.
It'll be good, though, if you did.
Yeah. Now, Mrs. Peacock, one of the eternal complaints is about the lack of proper medical treatment. What can you tell me, in fact, about medical treatment for the inmates and the prisoners? Mr. John, you're the nurse here, aren't you?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
How is it handled?
We have a nurse on duty from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily, 7 days a week. And from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., we have a nurse on call from the men's prison. Every new admission is seen by the doctor the evening they're admitted. There are 2 doctor parades per week for those people who feel that they have to see a doctor. There's dentists, there's opticians, etc., available to the inmates.
In here?
No, if they're not, the dentist is available here, not in this particular center, down in the men's hospital area. But if they have to see an optometrist, we do take them off grounds to see an optometrist.
Right. Now, what do you think of the medical treatment as a nurse? Is it good nurse treatment to get, Mr. John?
Yes, I think it's good.
No complaints from you about it?
No, from me, no complaint.
Do you get many calls from the girls on an average day? How many people would you see on an average day?
Well, but 8, 9, 10
8,
average.
9, 10.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. John. Thanks, Mrs. Peacock. Next move round Lakeside Correctional Center. Now, Mrs. Peacock, we're out of that building, thank goodness. That must be a large part of your problem, that antique structure.
Yes, there's no question about this. The structure is inadequate.
Now, where are we going now?
We'll go now into the schoolroom, and I'll show you. These are temporary trailers that have been
This
placed
the schoolroom?
here. Yes, it is.
This one here, you go
Yes.
first. We're going to have a look at the schoolroom, okay? Just a brief look. Now, here we are in the schoolroom.
Yes, this is the schoolroom.
How many teachers do you have?
We have one full-time teacher who teaches academic, and I have just contracted a coordinator from Douglas College who will be coordinating the entire educational services.
It's not quite as popular as some of your other features, though, it's at the schoolroom. How many will come to school?
Anywhere between 5 and 8.
And you've got the sewing as well.
We've got the sewing, we've got the beauty parlor, we've got the tailor shop. Oh, the tailor shop is the sewing. The laundry, the kitchen, the inside maintenance.
And these things like the schoolroom, what's the one next door?
There's the library.
The library. We don't have to see
No.
the library. We've seen libraries before. Now I want you to take me to the cow barns.
All right,
right?
we'll
We're
go
on.
there now.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, we've got to see the cow barns. Now, Mrs. Peacock, we're actually outside of the women's unit altogether now, and we're in the men's unit.
Yes, that's right.
And that building over there is properly called the cow barn
That-
because...
Well, it's called the cow barns, and that's because at one time, many years ago, there were cows kept in there, but that's very many years ago.
Now, that is normally male segregation, is that right?
Yes, underneath there.
Now, you did have some women in there
Yes,
recently.
I did. Yes, I did.
Why was that again? I forget.
That was as a result of the December 31st, New Year's Eve disturbance.
Now, before we go down there, I want to get it quite clear in my mind. We've been in the segregation unit up here. We're also in the place called the monkey cage.
Yes.
That was where the girls were stripped naked.
Yes, that's right.
How many girls?
There was 3 girls involved.
What was the longest anyone was naked in that operation?
Between 5 and 8 hours.
5 and 8 hours. Now, just tell me again, quite brutally, why were they naked?
We were having a lot of problems with fires. So we told the inmates that if they would give up their fire lighting equipment, their lighters and their matches, that we would return their clothing to them and their bedding, etc.
And when they did,
And when they did, they got everything back.
the one girl was handcuffed at the same time.
Yes, all 3 of them were handcuffed at the same time. But the 2 of them didn't resist. One resisted for a long period of time.
And that was the one who was handcuffed for 5
yes,
to 8
that's
hours.
Right,
Is
that's
that
right.
right? Now, a brutal question, but just to get it on the record. Why is it necessary to have them naked because of the fire materials they have, because they haven't given up their lighter or their matches?
Well, of course, if they don't give up their lighters and matches and they have ignitable material in their cells, they're going to cause more fires. And then the fire could be serious enough that we'd have to evacuate.
Yeah, I know, but can't you search their body cavities yourself to recover lighters?
Oh, no, we don't do internal searches.
But you know for sure that the lighters will be there.
Oh, yes, we knew that because it was returned to us.
From these 3 girls, did you
Yes.
get 3 lighters?
Got 3 lighters, yes.
From the rectal or whatever cavity?
Wherever they kept them.
And then the girls who were down in the cow barns here, how many were they?
There was 20 to start with.
All right, we'll go and see that.
Okay.
Good. Won't mind that piece of iron. So you brought 20 down here.
Yes, that's right.
20 down here, and how long did they stay?
From January 1st till the 7th, but there were only 14 left on the 7th.
On the 7th, there are only 14 left. Right, and we go up down the stairs. Okay, Mrs. Peacock, this is the long-established, infamous cow barns. There
Yes.
seem to be lots of cells in the place anyway.
Yes, there are. There's
Now,
quite a number.
the last time you brought the 20 down, was that the first time you had ever used this for women prisoners?
No, I had used this facility on December 27th a year ago,
A year ago.
for only a couple of days.
Let's just look into one of the cells. This is a straight cell with no facilities whatsoever.
That's right.
Just, this is a punishment cell.
Yes, that's what
No,
it is.
no point in kidding ourselves
That's
about
right.
that. The girls were in here how long?
Well, from January 1st to January 7th, some
Did
of
they
them.
have full bedding,
Yes, they had full bedding,
full food,
full food.
no smoking?
They did smoke.
And they were allowed because there's
Yes,
nothing to
right.
set fire to
That's
except
right.
their
That's
own
right.
bedding.
Yes.
Well, I hope you don't have to use them again.
Well, I sure hope so too.
I sure hope you get a new jail one of these days.
Well, that would be the answer, of course.
Well, thanks very much. The answer's a new jail for you and for Ocala itself.
Yes, indeed it is.
Believe that. It's a lie. The Mounties lied to me. Routine.
They lie to everyone, Jeff. The man
You should have had what I told Superintendent Mullock of the RCMP. Where did I get did I have documents? Making an official inquiry. I said, Bob, couple of things I want to tell you about the Ocala Women's Unit, because there has been an awful lot of misinformation peddled about it. It's what you could call on yesterday's visit, and I don't think any special preparations were made for me coming round with my crew. It is a spotless rabbit warren. I mean, it's just a mess. You go upstairs, you go downstairs, you go around corners, you go upstairs, you go downstairs, and every time there's a locked door, and there are 10 times as many doors as there need to be between the units, which have obviously been added on and built up and all the rest of it. And I had to accept Marie Peacock's advice on talking to inmates. You're an inmate in there, say you are a first offender, say you're not a druggie, say you're not a chippy, you're a first offender for theft or something, or whatever it is. And you're a reasonable person, and you say, well, Jack, it's not too bad. Not enough this, not enough that, but the food's good, and the levers are on, and we don't get beaten up. Marie says if anybody tells me that, they will have the finger put on them by the hardcore. Their lives potentially endangered and have to be locked up in segregation. Now, when I first heard of a description of a monkey cage, it was supposed to be this size. It's not. It's an ordinary cell, shortened by that wire grid which you saw. Makes it look quite brutal. But in the corner of that cell, you can see where the lighters had been used against the wall to try and I don't like doing these things on the air, but people have got to know why they must be searched, why they're not searched. There are no physical body searches. You need a doctor and a court order and all that kind of caper. I don't even know if you can do it outside if somebody being arrested by the Mountie swallows a balloon of drugs. I think you've just got to put him in a cell and wait until he produces the drugs. In much the same way as the lighters are produced here. So let's look at Ocala. I did not go into the staffing problems. When John Fryer was here, of course, he said BCGEU, you know. They have a fantastic agreement. The BCGEU has, as John will admit to you. And especially in a place like Ocala, where they work, I think, 8 hours and 15 minutes a day. That means that a guard is off every 3 months. A guard gets 2 weeks, 2 weeks holiday for the extra daily time. So that means that there are 3 months in the year, they get 8 weeks time off for daily overtime, plus their annual leave, plus their sick leave. And of course, when you've got women guards dealing with tough women prisoners, you have an awful lot of compensation time off. And there's at least one staff member now who will never come back to that prison. In fact, I think there are two. There's one who was injured in a fracas with inmates, and another one whose nerves were shattered and won't come back. And you know, it's a fact of life, dear ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not. And I was the guy who raised the original, before Marie Peacock, or at the beginning, some years ago, about 1977, I think, I raised the question of possible sexual improprieties in Ocala women's unit between male and females. Now, that Pat Proudfoot couldn't find any evidence of that at all. She found some other things. But one realizes in these circumstances, it's almost impossible to run Ocala women's unit without some males on the staff. Because you know the story, it's quite simple. In the old days, before they got the new communications thing, Teresa Brewer used always to escape while the poor guard was trying to get to the phone or was in her cage, afraid of a riot. Now they've got a decent thing, but of course the moment the men come up for reinforcements and any kerfuffles, the tough ladies, they're as nice as ninepence, you see, the moment the men appear. You can't run that kind of place in that kind of accommodation. I'm not one who argues for the vast expenditure of public funds. And we could probably get by with the main Ocala unit for the men for some little time yet. But that women's unit is a rabbit warren. That's all it is a rabbit warren. There was one very funny thing, not funny, tragic thing that happened yesterday, which I'm not going to show you on camera. When we were walking back from the cow barns I said, that's the Doukhobor hut. And Mrs. Peacock said, yes, it is. Do you want to see them? I said, sure, if they'll talk to me, because I'm very fond of Freedomites. You know, since first met Fanny Storjoff, the old matriarch in Krestova in 1948. And, you know, I was quite a buddy of Fanny Storjoff's, right up to the time when they marched down from the Agassiz dump to Vancouver. After that, we had an informal blackout on much of their behavior, which helped to kill the problem those many years ago. The moment they saw my face through the door of the unit, the 6 women in there instantly stripped. I said, I'm not going in there with cameras just to do this standard freedom out film caper. So the deputy went back in and said, if you put your clothes back on again, Mr. Webster will come in and talk to you. No way. We're just walking away and they all come out naked into the little exercise yard, desperate to talk to me. There was only one piece of clothing they had left on, which was really very funny, their socks, because the ground was very cold. I did so want to speak to them. They had, of course, no problem as prisoners as such. They're spotlessly clean. They look after their accommodation very well indeed. There's only one trouble, when they get upset. There's sometimes a little bit, the stripping doesn't matter, who cares? But there's sometimes a little bit of odd burning. It was quite an experience yesterday to walk down that place. I had said on the BC Pen, oh, I'm going to take phone calls, by the way, if you want to put up the thing. I had said that I wouldn't go back into a prison, even with a gold pass, after my final tour of the BC Pen. But that was worth doing. The first time television cameras have been in there. First time television cameras have been in the barn, too. And that really is a gruesome place. There it is, the old barn, you saw it for yourself, and subterranean. There are no male prisoners in there just now either. There were no prisoners in it at all. And the heating is turned off when it's not occupied for obvious reasons. And it was cold and dank. Oh, by the way, it was at the cow barns. The naked bit was in the monkey cage area, segregation. But it was in the cow barns where, when they went down to get the women out, that the tough prisoners emptied the buckets of human excrement over the guards. I merely tell you that so that you realize that running a place like Ocala with a number of repeaters is not exactly, what would you call it, kindergarten. Phone calls. Haven't taken any all week, I don't think, except on these politicians. After the break. Quite seriously, you should have.
Well,
Eh?
that's something for me to think about.
Just by the way, the news department tells me that bit of trouble in the west wing of the men's unit at Ocala this morning, involving a couple of dozen inmates or so, some broken furniture, some heating pipes, but it is now, says here, contained, and apparently triggered by sympathy over the New Mexico riot. That doesn't make much sense. I thought the New Mexico riot was totally within the prison among the inmates. However, that's what it says here. Telephone calls? Good morning.
Good morning, Jack. I'd like to commend you on your courageous step today in showing the true story of Ocala. Although people seem to think there are brutal guards in there, the conditions are really worse than they really are. But I think they actually make it, the inmates themselves make it a lot worse. I have known a few people who have been in there, and the stories they come up with, it's the inmates themselves that do make it a lot worse.
It's not a nice place, but it's clean. The food, I'm sure, is at least adequate, and if not better. It looked good yesterday, I'll tell you.
No, but they do need a new prison. I think they need some new ways of treating with prisoners, but it's not as bad as it really, a lot of the other station has made it out to be. I'd like to thank you for really showing the...
You mean some of the nonsense that was on CBC?
Yes, I didn't want to say
Well,
that.
one of the troubles is that you get a lot of naive young reporters who haven't quite grown up yet.
Well, that's an understatement.
And you've got to have been around a little bit to know that there are times to go for the authority. I was the guy who went after the BC pen, had one warden removed from the BC pen over an incredible incident. You got to be sure of your facts and then go for the throat.
Well, I think more of the
But to
reporters-
believe what you're told by my old, well, I can believe my old con friends, you know, all the old cons that I knew in the good old days when I was interviewing pimps, comic singers, drug addicts, bank bandits and whatnot. A certain type of old-fashioned crook who was an honest crook, but he's kind of gone nowadays. And you get young delinquents who are encouraged by misguided activists, and the whole thing gets totally out of perspective and proportion. I'm totally against brutality.
It's a me society. I want everything
I'm totally against women being stripped and handcuffed. Except for those emergency moments when you got to get the lighters back. You know, it's an incredible story. And if you told some of these kid reporters, do you know where they keep the lighters? Do you know why they strip them? Oh yes, to strip them, to humiliate them and brutalize them, and to put on a show for male guards. Some show, I'll tell you. However, thanks anyway.
Bye.
Right. Where am I now? 3. Yes.
Hello, Jack. I have to agree that prisons are pretty archaic, but, when you think of it, I mean, there has to be, I don't know if I should use the word punishment. I don't think that's right, but, I mean, when you think of it, people that have just, the crime of getting old, look at the way they're treated in some of our major hospitals. And yet we're, throwing all this pity on people who have actually committed crimes towards society.
The food is better in the prisons than it is in most hospitals.
And that's something, that's really a disgrace, isn't it? Because what crime have they committed?
Well, that's the way the ball bounces.
Well, it's sad, isn't it?
Sure is. Thanks anyway. Go ahead, please. Are you there?
Yes,
How are you?
fine.
Good.
Webster?
Yes.
Yes, I had great respect for you as a reporter. Now, I'm really disappointed on how you did this interrogation.
Would you do me a favor, my dear?
What?
Would you turn down your television set and
Okay.
come back to it, and I'll still let you have your say. Now, hold on, turn it down and come back. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Yeah.
I would like to know why there's
still not enough education in the prisons. I always felt that a lot of the reason there's so many criminals is the lack of education. So much is learnt from the streets, and like a good, honest education helps one. It teaches you lots.
Well, one, I think basically you have a lack of motivation for a number of prisoners. Two, in that place, the Ocala Women's Unit, they finally had to move it outside into a trailer. Three, you're right, there is not enough inspirational education.
Is it because of the lack of funds? I know it costs a lot of money just for the prisons to operate, but...
No, they have one full-time teacher there who could do a full day's work with an awful lot of people. There was a very nice teacher in there yesterday with a couple of girls. We didn't put on camera for reasons which I have explained. And they were doing some English course. Both very bright-looking girls and a very bright teacher.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because education is a wonderful thing.
Well, then, first of all, they've got to get a place where you're not in a rabbit warren.
That's true.
I mean, the whole old prison itself is appalling. Look at that temporary visiting area, for instance.
Yes, I know. I've been there. I've been visiting. I've never been in there, but I've visited it.
And, you know, the majority of the girls there are fully willing to cooperate, but you get some real toughies. You saw the story of why that empty room was torched. It was torched. The girls were put down in segregation because the officials were afraid that they'd offended somebody else and they were going to be in trouble with other inmates. So they put them in segregation. So to show what they thought of the authorities and the other prisoners, they torched the room.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, now back to this lady who's lost her respect for Webster. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. Mr. Webster?
Yes, my dear.
Yes, I had great respect for you, and I look up towards you as a reporter. But I'm really disappointed on how you conducted this interview with Ocala, as I was involved in the Cow Barn riots in '78, and that was my first time in.
Was that December '78?
That's correct. And we were thrown in there on December 27th with temperatures at 23 degrees, and they had to bring the health and standard boards in to let them know that it was unhealthy, and they had to move us to the men's side and keep us there till the next day, until what they got their heating fixed at 12 noon. Now, at that time, the building had been condemned for 2 years, and...
Still has been.
Right. And Mrs. Peacock declared the building under a state of emergency, and at which time they brought up the goon squad from the men's side, who used violence, which was not necessary at all, to handcuff us and to take us to the cow barn. Now,
were you one of the three that was stripped?
No, I am not one of the three that was stripped. I wasn't in 7.
Why did you go down to segregation?
How did I go down to segregation?
Why?
Refusing a direct order, refusing to be locked in our cells at 6 o'clock at night.
Who's running the prison?
Who's running the prison? Mrs. Peacock's running it. She knows it. She has it.
Well, now, are you running the prison?
Pardon me?
Are you running the prison?
No, I don't.
Did I show Ocala as it is today?
You showed various parts of it, but I believe you should have shown some of the tiers, some of the cells of how the prisoners have to live. There is cells there with 8 girls in each cell, which was originally...
Well, no, I'm not aware of any with 8, and some of 5 and 6.
I was in a particular...
Are they clean, the cells?
Yes, if you keep them clean.
Well, so you should, too.
Right. But I was in a cell in Group 6 in December '78, where there was 8 bunks. There was 8 of us jammed in one cell.
Now, that was Group 6 day room that I showed you.
Pardon me?
That was Group 6 day room that I showed you.
But I'm talking about an individual cell.
That was that was a 4-bed cell that was torched. Now, why would anybody burn up a cell?
Why would anybody burn it? Because probably they were 8 people in one cell with one washroom facility. You don't have enough...
No, this is an empty cell. Somebody in the corridor smashed the window and dropped...
I have no idea about that, but
how can you run a prison if that goes on? Surely you've got to take some action.
But I know the conditions of the cow barns in '78.
You saw the conditions, as I said this morning, it's a horrible, dank, cold, miserable place.
At the time, we were not given full bedding until 2 days later. We were made to sleep on the cement floor with oat blankets.
On the face of it, I don't believe you.
I am not one to cause a disturbance, and it was the first time I was ever in, and I don't consider myself...
Okay, I'm sorry you've lost your respect for me. I hope you don't go back again.
I hope not either, but if I do, I'll be sure to let Marie Peacock know where she stands, because she's...
And then you'll finish up in segregation again.
Everybody passes the buck in Ocala.
Are you still on drugs?
No, I'm not.
Good, stay off them. After the break. We know such nice people. Don't we, Brian?
How long do you want to do what?
Yeah, I'll play it by ear. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. I was in the disturbance that was just on now, like the last one we just had.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking to Mrs. Peacock, a lot of what she said wasn't true.
What?
Well, like when they said that we were giving proper bedding right away, that was not true. We didn't get it for 2 days. What we got was one wool blanket, and that was 2 days after we had already been in there. And the heat was so-called turned on, but, I mean, it was very, very cold.
Oh, you couldn't be warm in that place.
I realized it.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's a horrible place, but she had a problem at the time with prisoners refusing to go back to their cells.
Not at the time. Not when we first went there. No one refused to go back.
What caused the trouble from your point of view?
Pardon me?
What caused the trouble?
Well, I think most of it was because, like when you're in there, you put in a request for a certain thing, like maybe a visit or to see the doctor or numerous different things. And they say, okay, your request is okayed. The next day you go to have your request fulfilled, and it's shot down. They say they've either lost the request or it was never signed. And when
Or they're short of staff.
Pardon me?
Or they're short of staff.
Not really, no. No. When they tell you one thing, when they say to you one day that you're going to get a visit or you're going to get a phone call or you're going to be able to see the doctor or all sorts of certain things, they say positively you're going to get it. Then when the occasion comes, they say, no, you can't have it. You have no way of doing anything about it.
In other words, you get frustrated. There probably are administrative problems. There were a few years ago, and they're trying to straighten them up. Tell me about the arson, though.
The arsenal.
The arson.
Oh, the arson.
Tell me about who burns things and why.
Well, I wasn't there when the fire started. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm sure it was done mainly because of things like, as what I just said to you.
Yeah, but I mean, is there ever any reason to try and burn down a prison with people in it?
Well, there's no one in the room anyways, but okay, you tell me what a person's supposed to do. When you try to get something in there, and like as I say, when they say you can have it, and Mrs. Peacock, if you ever want to talk to her about something that's wrong in the prison, like you're not getting what you're supposed to get, you don't get the proper medical attention you're supposed to get, and
that's not what she says. Now, did you hear Marie Peacock last week on the program I did with her last week?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't hear it last week.
You didn't hear it last week. Well, I had her on last week as well. Of course there are problems in the prison. Now, what were you in for?
What was I in for?
Mm-hmm.
Breach of probation.
Breach of probation?
Yes.
You mean a suspended sentence?
Which is breach of probation.
What are your offenses for?
Pardon me?
A long record. Have you got a long record or are you a first-timer?
No, I don't have a long record, no.
No. It wasn't your first time in there?
No.
Tell me this business. You see, a number of girls might well have spoken to me yesterday, but Marie says, hey, they could be in real trouble if they speak to you, so I wasn't going to put anybody in any danger, so I didn't speak to any of the women.
Why not?
Because there are a couple of hard cases down there that might clout them for being nice about the jail. You know that as well as I do.
I don't think so.
Oh, come off it. If I accept what you say about some breakdown in administration, surely you will be honest with me and tell me that there are a couple of real hard cases there at least, who if they saw someone being complimentary about the food or the institution, they'd get a bad time from the hardcore ones, wouldn't they?
If the inmate was to say something?
Yeah, say something positive about the institution.
No, an inmate's not going to get a bad time because she says something positive about...
Oh, come off it.
Why should she get a bad time?
Because that's the policy of the hardcore people. Don't you say anything nice about this place. We're going to wreck the joint.
No, that's not true.
Well, now, you see, you spoiled your case. You should admit these things. You know as well as I do what goes on in places like that.
Sure, I know what goes on in places.
Sure you do.
But if there's something to say good...
But okay, I'll accept yours. You say that one of the problems is that approved requests, are not followed through properly, administratively, and slickly, right?
That's right.
I'll accept that, and thanks for your call. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Webster. That segregation you were talking about,
You mean the cow barns, or do you mean the one inside the women's unit?
one down by the monkey cages there.
The monkey cages.
Yeah. Now, the prisoners go down there for, what, 15 days?
Up to a maximum of.
Yeah, okay, up to a maximum of 15 days. Okay. Now, that is for what, punishment or for...
It's sometimes punishment, it's sometimes observation, and it's sometimes at the request of the individual or because the administration thinks that individual is in danger in the general population.
Okay, so the for the dangers for general population, the prisoner goes down there. He comes back up, and he's going to, the prisoner is going to get herself or himself in more trouble than he's worth.
If you know anything about the prison system at all, you'll know that one of the problems right now in the move from the BC pen is that there are a number of prisoners who have spent long times in segregation, protective custody at their own request, and who do not want to go anywhere near and will not go, if possible, near the general population.
Okay, but that's really...
Have you served any time?
No, I haven't.
Well, stay away from it. Oak Harbor, Washington State. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Good morning.
I've discovered you about a month ago, and I've enjoyed your program. I enjoy it every day.
Best morning television in the Northwest.
Yes, it comes on at 9 o'clock.
Precisely.
I'd like to compliment you, sir, on your vast knowledge. You seem to know a little about a lot of things.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
And also on your probing technique with politicians. I wish we had a Jack Webster in the United States here.
Yeah, you've got no Scotchman down there. You're dead.
Well, we need somebody like you to really dig into these guys. And
Do you know, there's a kid that I used to work with in KVOS years ago who is now a congressman down there. What's his name? Sharp? No. That young congressman from the Bellingham area.
Oh, is that correct?
Swift. Al Swift.
Oh, Al Swift.
Al Swift.
Why don't you try to bribe him?
Oh, don't mention bribe in this country.
Why don't you try to talk to him to get you an invitation to sit right in the middle of the U.S. Congress?
Listen, it might be an FBI man slipping me $500,000 under the table.
You heard about that.
Oh, did we ever?
Thank you so much for a very fine program every day.
Where's your accent from?
My accent's from?
Yeah, uh-huh.
I'm a Southerner. I was born in South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yes. My wife's Canadian, and I'm thinking about immigrating to Canada.
You got money?
No, not...
Well, don't come. Thanks for your call in regards to your wife. After the break. I remember one time I was double-crossed by the FBI. I've been involved in a murder case up here. Johnny Waslinchuk, an old friend of mine, now dead. Johnny had been a bank robber in his day. And I got involved in this doing a television program for CBC. I think it was This Hour of 7 Days. Not quite sure. Anyway, the FBI come very nicely to me in Vancouver and say, "Oh, Mr. Webster, that television program contains a certain amount of information which would be very, very valid evidence in this case. We've got the tape, but we need you to say that was said on the tape at that time." I thought, free trip to Seattle, nothing to it. Sure, I'll come down. The moment I crossed the border, and I said, I'm come down as a free agent, no subpoena. No, nothing at all. Landed at Seattle Airport, FBI officer hands me a warrant. Don't leave the United States until we tell you you can go. However, they picked up the hotel bill, so it didn't really matter. So I was a prisoner of the FBI for 48 hours. Nanaimo.
Hello, Jack.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Good.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for you.
By the way, Johnny Wassenchuck was found not guilty.
Pardon me?
That's just to the other viewers. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for you, Jack, but I've done about 3 years over a 7-year period in time in jail and stuff like this.
Women's jails or men's jails?
I was in the men's jail,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty well what that lady says in the jail is pretty well not true, because when you're in an isolation area down there like that, you're not allowed to smoke, and they don't give you blankets. They give you a mattress and you wear a set of coveralls some of the times.
Well, in that place they have blankets.
Pardon?
In that place they have blankets.
I was in the men's Ocala prison there.
Oh, no, I'm not arguing about your experience as a male prisoner in the cow barns at Ocala. All you had was a mattress and wore coveralls.
That's right. And I don't think it's fair to the women to be selected to that type of thing. And I know for a fact that when you're in PC or protective custody and stuff like that, they put you in there for your own protection. They don't put you in there because you caused the trouble. They put you in there to stop the trouble.
That's what I've been saying.
Right. And this lady that's the lady prison guard there, she's fairly right in a few things she says, but there's a lot of things that she has never brought out, the actual truth about a jail. The reason some of the inmates won't speak is because if they do say something towards the prison, saying it's good.
That's just what she said. If they praise the prison, they're marked people.
That's right. They are marked people.
They'll get done.
That's right. I have seen bad action in jail. I have seen what happens to when an inmate has talking to a guard. I have seen a guy end up against the wall and be iced in a jail.
Because he was talking to a guard.
That's right.
Well, you saw what happened in New Mexico. The first thing they did was they went straight to the files, found out who they thought the informers were, then they beheaded them, cut their eyes out with acetylene torches.
I was in a place up at what they call the Chilliwack Forestry Camp when a whole bunch of different action went on up in there, eh? And I'll tell you, you should see that camp up there. You want to see violence, you go up there and look around.
I thought that was a good place.
It's not bad, but it's not good.
Oh, I remember a big-time drug trafficker whose wife used to come up in the Cadillac every weekend.
Oh, yeah?
You know who I'm talking about?
I have an idea, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, well, you're right.
But anyway, talking about, the inmates there at that special place at Chilliwack Forestry Camp.
I thought it was a good camp.
In some ways it is, in some ways it
I mean,
isn't.
you're out working in the bush.
Pardon?
You're out working in the bush.
Yeah, what are you working for, $1 a day?
Wouldn't you rather work in the bush than sit in B7 in the BC Pen? Or whatever.
Well, it's better than working for $1 a day.
I'd rather be out in the bush.
Myself, I figure if you're going to do a man's job out in the bush, you should be paid a little bit more. And for visiting time, you don't get that much time to visit, eh? They say you get a visiting time twice a week, but you don't.
Well, that's in Ocala women's I'm talking about. I don't know about the rest. Well, anyway, thanks for your call and your understanding. Yes.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Webster. I'm really enjoying your show this morning. I wanted to mention something in regards to the interview this morning with Mrs. Peacock, etc. It was in regards to searching the prisoners. What I don't understand here is that if they can search you at the Canada Customs and Immigration in Toronto, if they suspect you of bringing in drugs or marijuana or whatever, I don't see why they can't search you in prison.
Do they give you a body orifice search?
It didn't happen to me, but it happened to my best girlfriend, and she just happens to have long hair, and she looks a bit hippie-ish sort of thing, but of course she,
Who examined her?
It was examined by a nurse when she was at Canada Customs in Toronto. This was about 3 or 4 years ago.
You mean for secreting drugs?
They suspected her, I guess, of transporting drugs across the border. She was going to L.A.
Sure, the prison regulations in British Columbia are that you cannot give intimate body searches to women prisoners.
Mm-hmm. This is what I wanted to mention here. It seems to me that they're going about it the wrong way. First of all, they're stripping their prisoners naked because they don't want them to set fire to themselves. And they're torturing them in that sense that they're allowing them to remain for 6 or 8 hours, etc., naked, rather than get a nurse and get a witness, or have Mrs. Peacock herself be present when it's done. And certainly search the person and remove those weapons. I mean, they are weapons.
Do you realize what's involved in that with a violent prisoner? That prisoner must be held down. You know, if it's a violent prisoner such as they have on occasion in Ocala Women's, do you realize the caper? It's a lot easier to take away their clothes and say, produce the lighter.
I think if a nurse is present, they should be injected.
No, it's the no, you couldn't do that. Not under our system, no.
It's a weapon. They are actually harboring a weapon.
I think there's less interference with civil liberties of a prisoner if you just say, you're naked, produce the lighter.
I know, but doesn't it seem a little degrading to you?
Oh, yeah, but it's not as degrading as putting someone out with a needle and then searching their body orifices.
They do it in hospitals. If they think you're a little violent, bing, you get a hypodermic immediately.
I wouldn't give that power to prison officials in any part of the land.
No, I understand your point of view because, I mean, it gets to the point where they could actually abuse them. I agree with you on that point. But I certainly...
But you're making the common sense point, if they've got a lighter hidden in the body orifice, for goodness sake, take it out.
I say definitely take it out rather than let them strip naked. You're doing the same torture. Whether you're physically searching them or whether you're stripping and looking at their bodies naked, you're doing the same thing.
No,
this is
not nearly as bad.
Jack, is that one, you know, two rights don't make a wrong. And
okay, we'll agree to disagree, and thanks for your call. After the break. It went well this morning, didn't it, love? You like free-for-alls. Pamela is very big on free-for-alls. Pamela is very big on free-for-alls. Do you like free-for-alls, girls? Do you like these phone-ins?
That's a very leading question to say the two girls. My goodness.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to say something about Mrs. Peacock's statement there. It sounds a little silly saying that the girls are going to be put in protective custody for saying certain things that are good about the joint. Now, I've done 6 years between the ages of 14 and 21. I hit the pen when I was 17. All my charges were minor. Joyriding in hot cars and escaping from the joint.
I believe that, but go back to the point. Surely you've been around enough to know that if someone cooperates with the authorities, they can be in real trouble.
If they want to talk to a reporter that comes in there, they're not going to say what's good. They're going to complain about all the shit that's bad in there. And there's many things that are wrong with all of the joints. So,
okay, I know that as well as you do, but all I attempted to do was to show that spotlessly clean rabbit warren, which is vastly out of date. You know, it's just a dreadful place to... How can you operate an efficient rehabilitation center if you want to do that in a place built like that? It's damn near impossible.
well, I'll say one thing. That's a great improvement from what it was 10 years ago. I mean, when you went to the digger then, in the penitentiary, it was almost automatic every time. 30 days in the joint, or in the digger, 30 days loss of good time, and that's 30 days on bread and water. 8 pieces of bread in the morning.
No, you're wrong.
Bread in the...
They weren't allowed to give 30 days in bread and water. You had not on one charge. I did a detailed report on a man called, not Johnny Waslin Chuck, Johnny Wasley Shen, who had been, as my memory serves me right, 21 days bread and water for destroying government property, to wit a pair of socks. Now, he did the 21 days straight, which was a breach of the regulations. The regulations at that time said you had to do 7 days and then go on full meals, and then later another 7 days and 7 days. Now, if you got 30 days straight, that was, I'm sure, a breach of the regulations.
Well,
and that was a ridiculous piece of punishment to this particular prisoner, Johnny Waslishin, who later died in the hole in the BC pen, I'm talking 20 years ago, on a diet of bread and water. And that, boy, did I kick up a stink about that one.
Jack, I'll say this. I was in there 1965, 66, and 67. And at that time, almost at least 80% of the people that went to the hole it was 30 days bread and water, like I said. 8 pieces in the morning, 8 in the late afternoon, but you got a meal at lunch. But that meal was just the bare things. You got no sauces on anything, no butter, no salt or pepper, nothing like that. No dessert.
Yeah, we're getting. I'm totally against the bread and water punishments. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think that should be allowed today.
Well, it's a good thing that's all changed, but there's still many, many more things.
Oh, agreed entirely. I'm not here as a PR for Ocala, but I like people to know both sides of a story and see the actual facilities. And the cow barns are disgraceful.
Yeah, well, I was in there when the cows were upstairs.
Listen, you know, in those days, I've just got 2 minutes. Do you remember the beautiful farm and the Clydesdale horses?
Mm-hmm.
Eh? Well, when Alec MacDonald became Attorney General in '72, one of the first things he said was, we're going to get rid of the cow barns. We're going to get rid of that segregation, that hole, the digger down there. Never did. Still there.
Well, in those days, all the cement was cracked, so all the moisture from
still is.
The barn came down and was on your walls.
Still damp, miserable, horrible.
Terrible.
Just disgusting.
Well, you're doing a good program, Jack, showing both sides. That's good.
It's a long while since I've been involved in jails, and it's not my favorite topic.
No, I don't think it's anyone's favorite topic.
Right?
Oh, yeah, Jack.
Bye. I always remember my old friend Duchesne, drug addict, now dead, complained to me just shortly before he was either killed or committed suicide, not sure what. He said, Jack, he was out in the Pasture Mountain prison. He said, Jack, the trouble with today's prisons is that an old-timer like myself can't serve his time in peace and quiet. He says, I gotta go and see the drug clinic. I gotta go to AA. I gotta go and talk to social workers. And Duchesne was a real, except for his basic personality defect, a very nice fellow. His complaint then was, and it's still the complaint of many men in the system, they're not allowed to serve their time in peace and quiet. Just count your blessings you're sitting at home and not in the digger somewhere. Oh, I've only got 15 seconds. I'm very sorry I can't take that call. I'll have to take a break now before Linda and I wrap up today's show after this message. What's the length of 10:30?
Yeah. What do we got, 45? 55, okay, about 55. Is that everything here?
President of the Treasury Board.
Look it over the top there, sir.
I want to do the Winnipeg item tomorrow, and we'll tell Don Winterton about it. And I'm going to do the art gallery, and I'm going to do the RCMP investigation. I'm going to get him down off his high horse onto little pieces. Because he's a twit. Oh, give me some background on Sinclair Stevens today. Have you got anything on him?
I've got a few things, just from the federal clippings. I don't have profiles on
Don't
him.
need anything.
I've not seen a profile on
Treasury
him for a
Board.
while.
What kind of botch up has he made since he took over?
You going to talk straight to Linda?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Where did you say Pierre Trudeau is today?
I believe he's in Prince George
And
today.
then he's going back east again.
Back to Toronto.
He's coming out here again.
Hopefully next
We've
week.
got a bid in for him, haven't
Yes.
we? I don't know if he'll come. I don't think he'll come, do you?
Who knows? We'll see.
Have to grin and bear it if he does, won't we? Oh. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow we have Sinclair Stevens, the president of the Treasury Board.
Oh, that's the red-faced fellow.
That's right. I think we'll talk to Mr. Troll, too. Richard the Troll.
Yeah, you haven't set me up for that, have you?
Last 15 minutes of a Friday morning, why not?
The Rhinoceros Party?
That's right.
They might make the best government for this nation at this particular moment. But we won't commit ourselves to vote for the Rhinoceros Party. Richard the Troll, I didn't do him the last time.
No, no.
You know, however, we'll have him on tomorrow morning. Anything else? Oh, we've got lots of other stuff up our sleeves.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Linda. Very much obliged. My thanks to Ocala for cooperation tomorrow, 9 a.m. precisely.